when a ruthless billionaire lies on his deathbed, his shocking last wish is to see Rosa, the black maid he once destroyed with cruelty and silence, summoned to his mansion after 30 years. Rosa walks back into the house, built on blood, where Harold Whitmore's entitled children meet her with venom, racism, and disbelief. From confessions whispered in shadowed rooms to the explosive reading of a will that grants Rosa millions and exposes decades of systemic abuse, the Whitmore legacy begins to crack. The children rage, threatening lawsuits and intimidation, but their father's hidden letters revealed the buried truth. Their empire was built on exploitation, negligence, and lives lost, including Rosa's own husband and son. As greed consumes the heirs, Rosa transforms her inheritance into a weapon of justice, creating a legacy for the silenced and forgotten. In the end, she leaves the crumbling mansion forever, not as a maid, but as the last word against power, racism, and cruelty. The room smelled of medicine, fading roses, and old money. Harold Whitmore lay sunken into silk sheets, his body a shadow of the titan who once commanded skyscrapers and senators. The billionaire's breaths were shallow, rattling like coins. At the bottom of a tin can, his children circled the bed like vultures. Father, Edward, the eldest, spoke first. "You should rest. The lawyers will take care of everything." Harold's lips trembled. "No, not yet." His voice was paper-thin but carried the weight of command. "There is someone I must see before I leave this world." Margaret straightened, pearls clinking at her neck. "The Reverend, we already called him." Harold shook his head weakly. "Not the Reverend Rosa." A silence fell heavy as stone. "Rosa who?" Daniels scoffed. "The maid," Harold rasped. "Rosa Daniels, from long ago." The siblings exchanged looks, first of confusion, then outrage. Edward's face flushed red. "Father, you cannot be serious. That woman, a servant." Margaret's lips curled into a cruel smile. "She was dismissed decades ago. She was nothing more than background." Harold coughed violently, clutching his chest. "She was never nothing." Daniel paced the room, agitation rolling off him. "This is absurd. You're dying, Father, and instead of focusing on family, you're thinking about he spat. The word, maid. Harold's eyes, dimmed but burning, fixed on him. "It is my last wish. Bring Rosa to me." The children erupted. Edward slammed his fist on the mahogany dresser. "Do you understand how this looks? A black maid. At your deathbed, the press will tear us apart. Investors will whisper. We have a legacy to protect." Margaret leaned in, voice dripping venom. "You're delirious, Father. She probably lives in some slum now. Imagine the scandal." Harold wheezed, each word a struggle. "Legacy. What is legacy? Without truth, without justice." Silence again. The only sound was the heart monitor's steady beep. Daniel's voice dropped, low and sharp. "Why her? Why now?" Harold's hand trembled as he reached for the oxygen mask, pulling it away just long enough to whisper, "Because I wronged her. And it has haunted me every day since." The siblings froze. Their father, the ruthless tycoon who crushed rivals without blinking, was confessing weakness. Margaret shook her head in disbelief. "You owe her nothing." Harold's frail smile was laced with regret. "No, my dear, I owe her everything." The family exchanged glances, fear flickering behind their arrogance. For the first time, the possibility slithered into their minds. What if Rosa's return meant more than sentiment? What if their inheritance was at risk? Edward leaned close, his whisper a hiss. "If you do this, Father, you'll destroy us." Harold closed his eyes, voice fading but resolute. "Then so be it. Find her." Rosa Daniels stood at the kitchen sink, rinsing chipped plates with water that never quite turned hot. The small apartment rattled each time the buses passed outside, shaking the window frames like an old man's cough. Her hands, rough from decades of scrubbing, slowed as her mind drifted back to a house she had sworn never to think about again. The Whitmore mansion, marble floors, silver cutlery she was never allowed to touch without gloves, voices that rang with orders, insults, and laughter that wasn't meant for her. A knock at the door pulled her back. "Miss Daniels." A voice, cold, male, nervous. She dried her hands, opened the door, and found a man in a tailored suit. His shoes too shiny for this neighborhood. He cleared his throat. I've been sent by the Whitmore family." Rosa's eyes narrowed. "Whitmore? I don't know them no more." The man shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Harold Whitmore is gravely ill. He asked to see you. Personally. The room seemed to tilt. Rosa's breath caught me, she whispered. After all these years. Yes, ma'am. He insists. She let out a bitter laugh, sharp as broken glass. That man never insisted on anything but his own power. Why now? The messenger hesitated, then lowered his voice. He said it was his last wish. Silence stretched. Rosa's heart hammered, memory after memory clawing at her chest. The way young Edward had called her girl even though she was nearly 30. Margaret sneering whenever Rosa walked too close to the parlor. Harold himself smiling in public, but in private. The wages he withheld, the dignity he stripped, the lies he told. Her neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, peeked in through the open door. Rosa, everything all right? Rosa forced a smile. Just business talk, nothing more. She closed the door firmly. The messenger stepped forward. He's dying. Miss Daniels, he said, he owes you something. That he cannot rest until you come. Rosa's hands trembled, but she folded them behind her back to hide it. Owes me. Her voice hardened. No, sir. That man owes generations, not just me. The man looked pained. I'm only the messenger. But he begged. I've never seen a man like that. He cut himself off. Rosa studied him. His eyes carried no malice, just unease. She turned away, walking slowly to the window. Children played in the street, their laughter piercing through cracked glass. She thought of her own child, gone too soon. Because Harold Whitmore had cut corners on the company's health insurance for workers like her late husband, she thought of how she'd scrubbed blood out of carpets after drunken parties, forbidden to speak. Tell him, Rosa began, her voice unsteady. Then she stopped. The man waited. She turned back, eyes steady now, though wet with unshed tears. Tell him I'll come. Not for him, but because some ghosts don't leave unless you face them. The messenger nodded, almost relieved. Tomorrow morning, then. A car will be sent. As the door closed, Rosa sank into the worn armchair, staring at her scarred hands. For decades, she had survived by burying the past. Now the past was calling her name. Her whisper filled the empty room. Lord, give me strength. This time, I will not bow. The Whitmore mansion rose like a monument to arrogance. Stone lions guarded the gates, their jaws forever frozen in silent roars. The driveway gleamed with polished cobblestones, as though time had never touched it. Rosa stepped out of the car, her hands clenched at her sides. She had not been here in more than 30 years. The air carried the same scent, trimmed hedges, overwatered roses, and money. The driver opened the door for her. Ma'am, this way. Her feet felt heavy, yet steady. She whispered to herself, you're not their servant anymore. You walk as a guest, not as property, thought as she entered the foyer. Voices erupted immediately. Margaret's shrill tone echoed down the hall. What is this circus? Who allowed her in here? Rosa froze. Margaret, now gray at the temples but still sharp-faced, strode toward her in heels that clicked like gavel strikes. Edward followed, jaw tight. So, it's true. Father's delirium brought you back. His eyes scanned her like she was dirt, tracked onto marble floors. Unbelievable. Daniel trailed behind, smirking. I thought they were joking. Rosa Daniels, the legendary maid. Didn't think you'd actually show your face here. Rosa straightened. I didn't come here for you, Margaret sneered. Then why are you here? To sniff around his fortune. Rosa's eyes locked on hers, steady and unflinching. I came because your father called me. That's all. Edward stepped closer, lowering his voice like a threat. Don't think for 1 second you belong in this house. You never did. Rosa almost laughed. Belong. This house was built on my back. On backs like mine. Every stone here carries the sweat and blood of people you never saw. For the first time, silence cut through the children's hostility. But it lasted only seconds. Daniel chuckled darkly, romanticizing scrubbing floors now. You were paid, weren't you? Rosa's voice hardened. Not paid fairly. Not treated fairly. And you know it. A flash of memory burned behind her eyes. She saw herself at 25, holding her baby boy on her hip, while Margaret ordered her to polish silver faster. She remembered the humiliation of serving cocktails to Harold's guests while they joked about keeping the help in line. Rosa whispered to herself, almost too soft to hear, I bled in this house. What was that? Margaret snapped. Rosa met her eyes. I said, this house remembers me, more than you ever will. Edward's voice cracked like a whip. Enough of this. Father must be losing his mind. This meeting will not happen. From the grand staircase above, a weak but commanding voice echoed, "It will." Everyone froze. Harold Whitmore, frail as parchment, leaned on the banister with the help of a nurse. His presence silenced the room. "Father, you shouldn't be out of bed," Margaret began. "Quiet," Harold rasped. His gaze fell on Rosa. "You came." Rosa stood tall. "I came. But not for your comfort, for mine." His lips trembled, but he nodded. "Fair enough. You'll have it." The siblings exchanged furious looks, whispering among themselves like jackals in a corner. Rosa could feel the venom behind their glares, but she refused to bow. The nurse guided Harold back upstairs, his last words before disappearing down the hall carried across marble walls. "Bring her to me," Edward hissed under his breath. "This isn't over." Rosa stepped forward, her heels tapping against the marble she once scrubbed on her knees. She did not look at them as she followed the nurse. But inside, her heart thundered. Off every hallway she passed was haunted. The grand dining room where she'd been forced to eat scraps in the kitchen while the family dined. The ballroom where she'd been shoved out of sight when dignitaries came. The library where Harold had once told her she was lucky to work for greatness. Now those ghosts whispered again. This house was built on blood. Rosa's hands tightened into fists. She wasn't here to be invisible anymore. The study door slammed shut. Heavy curtains blocked the afternoon light, casting the room in shadows. Edward paced in front of the fireplace like a caged lion. "This is madness. Absolute madness. Father has lost his mind." Margaret poured herself a drink, hands trembling. "Imagine if word gets out that he summoned her, a maid. And not just that," she dropped her voice, "a black maid. The papers will twist this into a scandal." Daniels sprawled lazily on the leather sofa though. His eyes gleamed sharp. "You're both missing the point. Father's guilt is dangerous. If he's talking about Rosa now, what's next? Changing the will?" Edouard stopped pacing. His jaw tightened. "Don't even suggest it," Daniel smirked. "Why not? It's possible. You know how sentimental the old man gets when death's at the door." Margaret slammed her glass down. "No, he would never humiliate us like that. We are his family, his blood." From the corner, Rosa's voice cut through like a knife. "Blood doesn't make you decent." The three siblings turned. She had entered quietly, standing near the door with her chin lifted. Edward sneered. "You have no right to be in here." Rosa didn't move. "I've been told that my whole life. Yet here I am." Margaret's eyes flashed. "You think you're special. You were a servant, a background shadow. Nothing more." Rosa stepped forward, her voice steady. "I was flesh and blood. Same as you. But you never saw me. You saw what you wanted. Someone beneath you." Daniel chuckled darkly. "And now what? You expect us to bow to thank you for dusting our shelves?" Rosa's eyes didn't waver. "No, I expect you to hear the truth." Edward moved closer, towering over her. "You don't belong here. You never did. Father is confused, and when he dies, this farce dies with him." Rosa stared right back. "You're afraid," he blinked. "What? You're afraid he'll leave you less than you think you deserve? Afraid that a woman you mocked, a black maid you spat on, might matter more in his last breath than all your riches?" The silence was thunderous. Margaret's face twisted with rage. "How dare you?" Rosa raised her chin higher. "I dare, because for 30 years I swallowed my words, I bent my back, I bit my tongue, but I don't serve you anymore. You cannot silence me now." Daniel stood, clapping slowly, mock applause echoing. "Brave speech, Rosa, very theatrical. But let's be clear, you're here because Father asked, not because you matter. Once he's gone, you're dust again." Rosa's voice dropped to a whisper, cold as stone. "Dust remembers, and dust settles where it chooses." Edward's fists clenched. He turned away, muttering, "She won't touch a penny. I'll see to it." Margaret's voice dripped with venom. "She doesn't want money. Look at her clothes. Look at her life. She just wants to drag us down into her misery." Rosa's lips curled into a faint smile. "No, Margaret, I want something money can't buy. Truth, and the truth terrifies you." The siblings froze again. They had built their lives on silence and buried stories and unspoken debts. Rosa's words cracked that foundation. The study door creaked open. The nurse stepped in, pale and tense. "Mr. Whitmore is ready. He wants Rosa, alone." The siblings erupted in protest. "Alone?" Edward thundered. "This is outrageous." Margaret shrieked. Daniel shook his head, muttering, "He's lost it completely. The nurse's voice trembled but remained firm. His orders, no one else. Rosa moved toward the door. The siblings blocked her path, forming a wall of silk, suits, and fury. Edward leaned down, his whisper venomous. One wrong word in that room, and you'll regret it. Rosa's eyes blazed. You've made me regret enough. I have nothing left to fear. For the first time, Edward faltered, stepping aside. Rosa passed them without another word. The door closed behind her, leaving the three children in their rage, their legacy trembling on the edge of collapse. The room was dim, curtains drawn tight against the afternoon sun. Machines hummed quietly, their blinking lights a reminder that Harold Whitmore lived on borrowed time. Rosa entered slowly. Every step felt like crossing a battlefield she once fled. Harold's eyes flickered open. His face was pale, skin stretched thin over bones. But when he saw her, something like relief softened his features. You came, he whispered. Rosa didn't move closer. I almost didn't. He coughed, a hollow rattle that shook his frame. I thought you wouldn't forgive me. Her eyes narrowed. Forgive, Harold. You think this is about forgiveness? He reached out a trembling hand, but she didn't. Take it. I needed to see you, before it's over. To unburden. Rosa's voice sharpened. You burdened me for years. What makes you think I came to ease yours? Harold closed his eyes, a tear slipping free. I was wrong, all of it. I treated you like less than human. Rosa's silence was heavier than accusation. She let him writhe in it. Finally, she spoke, her tone low and steady. Do you remember my son Harold? Little Samuel? He was 7. When he fell sick, you cut health coverage for non-essential workers that year. Do you know what it's like to watch your child choke for air, knowing you can't afford a doctor? Harold's chest heaved. I remember. I told myself it was business cost. Business. Rosa's voice cracked, trembling with fury. My boy was not a balance sheet. The silence that followed was suffocating. Harold's hand shook as he wiped at his mouth. And my husband, Rosa continued, voice breaking, he worked at your mill. The day the machines failed, the day he died, you told the papers it was worker error, but we knew, everyone knew you cut corners to save money. Harold's face twisted in pain. I did. God help me, I did. I built an empire on their backs, on yours. Rosa stepped closer now, eyes burning. Say it plain, Harold. Don't hide behind business. Say what you did. He met her gaze, trembling. I stole from you. I crushed you. I destroyed families. I told myself it was the way of the world. But it was racism, and greed, and cowardice. Her chest rose and fell, her breath uneven. For decades she had dreamed of hearing those words, yet they rang hollow. You think speaking truth at the end makes you righteous? She asked. No, he whispered. It makes me desperate. His frail body shook with sobs. Every night I see your face, your boy's face. I built towers, bought senators, but I could not buy peace. Only you can give me that now. Rosa's voice hardened. And what do I get? After years of silence, after cleaning your filth while you dined in gold rooms, after burying my family while you grew richer. He swallowed hard. My confession, my wealth, my name. Her laugh was sharp, bitter. Your name. That name is poison. He coughed, blood at the edge of his lips. Then take what you can. Take the money. Take the power. Use it to undo me. Rosa froze. The weight of his words pressed against her chest. Undo you, she murmured. Harold's eyes glistened. Yes, that is my will. My children, they know nothing of sacrifice, but you lived it. If anyone deserves reparation, it's you. She turned away, pacing the room. Reparations aren't charity. They aren't gifts you sprinkle at death's door. They're justice. And justice doesn't wait for you to be dying. He reached out again, weaker now. Rosa, will you let me leave this world knowing I tried? Her eyes filled with tears, though her voice was steel. I will let you leave this world knowing you confessed. That's all. Whether the world forgives you, whether God forgives you, that is not mine to give. Harold sobbed, clutching his sheets. Then speak the words. Let me hear them. Rosa stepped closer, her shadow falling over him. You were a cruel man. You wore power like armor, but it rotted you from within. You can beg, Harold, but the truth is this. You destroyed lives for profit, and no prayer on your lips can erase that. If you want peace, find it beyond this life. You won't find it here. His body trembled, and for the first time, Harold Whitmore looked smaller than the woman he had once treated as invisible. Rosa leaned in, whispering, "I am not your maid anymore. I am your witness." Harold closed his eyes. A single breath escaped, ragged and final. The machines screamed. The nurse rushed in. Rosa didn't flinch. She turned, walked to the window, and pulled back the heavy curtain. Sunlight poured in, illuminating the room like judgment. The lawyer adjusted his glasses, his voice echoing across the Whitmore parlor. Heavy drapes muted the daylight, as though even the sun didn't dare intrude. Harold's children sat stiff in armchairs, their grief drowned by anticipation. Rosa sat apart, near the window, her posture calm but unyielding. The lawyer cleared his throat. "This is the last will and testament of Harold James Whitmore, executed 3 months ago." Margaret straightened. 3 months ago. Yes, the lawyer confirmed. Mr. Whitmore insisted on revisions. Edward's jaw tightened. "Revisions, without consulting us." The lawyer ignored the interruption. "To my beloved children, Edward, Margaret, and Daniel, I leave the primary shares of Whitmore Enterprises, with the stipulation that they serve as equal stewards." The siblings exhaled collectively, relief flickering, but the lawyer continued. "However, Mr. Whitmore specified that 30% of his personal estate, liquid assets, and 1 property are to be transferred to Rosa Daniels." The room erupted. "What?" Margaret shot to her feet, voice shrill. "That's impossible." Edward slammed the armrest. "This is fraud. She manipulated him." Daniel laughed bitterly, shaking his head. "Oh, this is rich. Father lost his mind, and we're all supposed to nod along." The lawyer raised a hand. "I assure you, Mr. Whitmore was of sound mind. He dictated these terms with clarity. His words were, 'To Rosa Daniels, who reminded me of my humanity when I had none.'" Stunned silence followed. Rosa's hands clenched in her lap. She had not come for money, but the words cut deeper than gold. Margaret's face twisted. Humanity, she was the help. Rosa finally spoke, voice calm but edged with fire. "I was more human than this house ever allowed me to be." Edward lunged forward, pointing a finger at her. "You think you've won something. You think this gives you a place among us. You'll never belong here." Rosa met his glare without flinching. "I don't want to belong here. I want truth. And your father gave it." Daniel leaned back, smirking. "This will never hold. We'll challenge it." "Courts don't side with Maids over Whitmores," the lawyer interjected, firm. "Mr. Whitmore's wishes were clear and legally binding. Unless you prove coercion, the courts will uphold it." Margaret's voice dripped venom. "Coercion, of course. She appears after 30 years, whispers in his ear, and suddenly she's entitled to a fortune." Rosa's voice was steady. "I whispered nothing. Your father summoned me. His conscience did the rest." Edward turned to the lawyer, seething. "You expect us to accept this insult, that our inheritance is carved away for her?" The lawyer closed the folder. "I expect you to honor your father's last will. Whether you accept it or not is your burden." Margaret spun toward Rosa, eyes blazing. "You think you'll keep it? You'll be torn apart in court. We'll drag your name through the mud. We'll remind everyone you were nothing." Rosa stood slowly, dignity radiating from her frame. "You can try, but mud can't stain what's already endured fire." Edward barked a bitter laugh. "Big words, but when the lawsuits begin, you'll crumble." Rosa's eyes glistened, but her voice rang like steel. "I have crumbled before, and each time I rose. I will rise again." The siblings simmered in silence, rage burning their features. The lawyer gathered his papers. "Then my duty is complete. Mr. Whitmore's instructions will proceed immediately." As he left, the siblings descended on Rosa, their voices overlapping, like snarling dogs. "You tricked him. You'll regret this. You're nothing but a thief." Rosa didn't respond. She walked past them, each step echoing across marble floors she once polished on her knees. At the doorway, she paused. Her words were soft, but they silenced the room. "You can fight for his fortune. I will fight for his truth. And truth always outlives money." She left them there, choking on their rage, while the mansions seemed to creak under the weight of Harold Whitmore's final act. The storm broke that evening. Rain battered the mansion's windows, thunder rolling like drums of war. Rosa stood in the guest room they had begrudgingly offered her, staring at the lightning that illuminated the estate grounds. A knock came, polite but forceful. She opened the door to find Edward, Margaret, and Daniel together. their faces twisted with fury. Edward pushed his way in without asking. "We need to talk." Margaret followed, her perfume sharp, her voice sharper. "No, we need to end this farce." Daniel shut the door behind them, leaning against it like a jailer. "Father's gone. Now it's just us." Rosa folded her arms. "Then speak your piece." Edward's voice was a growl. "We're not letting you steal what's ours." Rosa's brow lifted. "Steal? I didn't write the will," Margaret snapped. "You might as well have. You poisoned his mind with guilt." Rosa stepped forward, her voice calm but cutting. "I didn't put guilt in him. He carried it himself. You just refused to see it." Daniel smirked, though his eyes burned. "Listen carefully. You don't walk away with a dime. You sign away your claim, quietly, and in return, we don't make your life hell." Rosa tilted her head. "And if I don't?" Edward leaned close, his breath hot with anger. "Then we bury you. We've got resources, lawyers, influence. We'll drag your name through every paper, dig up every rumor, make you wish you never stepped foot in this house." Rosa didn't flinch. "You already buried me once. When you let your father grind my family into dust. I survived it then. I'll survive you now." Margaret's voice cracked, brittle with rage. "You're nothing but a maid. Always will be. No inheritance changes that." Rosa's eyes glistened, but her voice held firm. "If being a maid means I worked hard, endured hardship, and kept my soul intact, Aeneas, I am proud of that." "What are you proud of, Margaret?" "Being cruel on fine carpets." The words landed like a slap. Margaret's face flushed crimson. Daniel stepped forward, his smirk gone. "You think you're brave. But this house doesn't belong to you. You'll never win." Rosa's voice lowered to a whisper, fierce as fire. "This house is built on blood. It remembers every insult, every theft, every cry. And one day, walls speak." Lightning flashed, thunder rattled the glass. For a heartbeat, the siblings looked unsettled, as if the storm itself sided with her. Edward broke the silence. "We're warning you, Rosa. Walk away." Rosa stepped closer, her gaze piercing. "No. For the first time in my life, I walk forward, and you will learn that not everything can be bought or silenced." Margaret let out a bitter laugh. "We'll see. Courts don't care about maid stories." Rosa's lips curved into the faintest smile. "But people do, and when truth comes out, even courts bow." Edward's hand tightened into a fist, but Daniel grabbed his arm. "Not here, not now." The three of them retreated, but not without venom. "This isn't finished," Edward hissed. "You'll regret standing against us." Margaret spat. Daniel smirked again, though his eyes betrayed unease. "Ghosts don't win wars, Rosa." When they were gone, Rosa sank onto the bed, her body trembling with the weight of it all. Yet beneath the fear, something else burned resolve. She whispered into the storm outside. "They think fire will scare me. But I've lived in flames all my life. Now, it's their turn to burn." The thunder answered her, shaking the mansion to its foundations. The mansion's dining hall had been transformed into a war room. The Whitmore children sat at one end of the table, their lawyers beside them, briefcases stacked like shields. Rosa sat alone at the other end, her posture calm, her hands folded. "Lawyer," Mr. Cole cleared his throat. "There's one more matter. Mr. Whitmore left sealed letters in my possession, with instructions that they be opened only in the event of contesting the will." Edward sneered. "Letters. Probably senile ramblings." Margaret waved her hand dismissively. "Yes, let's not indulge his guilt-fueled nonsense." But Rosa leaned forward, read them. Mr. Cole nodded and slit open the first envelope. His voice trembled slightly as he began. "To whom it may concern, if my children attempt to deny Rosa Daniels her share, know this: she once saved my life." The room froze. Daniel scoffed. "Saved his life? Ridiculous." Mr. Cole continued. "Was the winter of 1979. I fell on the marble staircase during one of my drunken nights. Rosa found me. She could have left me there, broken and bleeding. Instead, she carried me, though I had carried nothing for her but cruelty. She saved me, and I repaid her with silence." Rosa's eyes closed, the memory returning. The night she dragged his weight, her back nearly breaking, while he muttered insults even in pain. Mr. Cole opened another letter. "I built my empire by cutting corners, by exploiting those without voices. Rosa's husband, Thomas Daniels, died because of my negligence. Her son, Samuel, was buried because of my greed. These truths are written here because I could not face them in life. Let no one deny them in death. Margaret shot to her feet. This is slander. Rosa's voice cut through her shriek. It's truth, and you know it. Edward's fists slammed the table. We won't allow this. These are just words, not proof. Mr. Cole calmly opened the final envelope. There is proof. Mr. Whitmore kept records, hidden ledgers, payment cuts, safety violations, insurance denials, all tied to Daniels' family employees. He slid photocopies across the table, columns of numbers, signatures Harold's own handwriting. Edward snatched a page, scanning it, his face drained of color. This can't. Margaret grabbed another sheet, hands trembling. He wouldn't. Daniel leaned back, pale but smirking faintly, as though denial were armor. So father wanted to play saint at the end. What does it matter now? Rosa's voice rose, steady and fierce. It matters because the truth lives longer than lies. For decades, you lived off blood you pretended not to see. Now, the world will. Edward lunged up, voice cracking. You can't. You won't take this public. Rosa stood, eyes blazing. I don't have to. The truth is already free. Mr. Cole hesitated, then spoke. The letters were filed with a journalist, per Mr. Whitmore's request. If the will was challenged, the story goes live. The siblings erupted. You betrayed us. Margaret shrieked at the lawyer. This will ruin everything. Edward roared. Daniel cursed under his breath, gripping his temples. Rosa stepped forward, her voice quiet but commanding. No, your father betrayed me. And now, his own words betray you. The storm outside had passed, but inside the mansion, chaos reigned. The Whitmores screamed, cursed, threatened lawsuits, but their power cracked with every desperate word. Rosa turned toward the window. Beyond the glass, the first rays of morning pierced the clouds. She whispered, not to them but to herself, Samuel, Thomas, your names will not be forgotten now. Behind her, the Whitmore empire trembled, its marble pillars shaking under the weight of truth made flesh. The press swarmed the Whitmore estate within days. Headlines screamed, Whitmore Empire, built on exploitation, and final will names former Maid as beneficiary. Edward slammed newspapers onto the dining table. We're ruined. Do you see this? Years of reputation, destroyed. Margaret clutched her pearls, voice cracking. I can't even walk into my club. They look at me like I'm filth. Daniel poured himself whiskey at noon, laughing bitterly. Welcome to my world. For once, people see us as we really are. Across the hall, Rosa sat with Mr. Cole, the lawyer. She listened quietly as he explained. 30% of Harold's estate has cleared. It is yours to claim. Liquid assets alone exceed 50 million. Add the property, and Rosa raised a hand, silencing him. I didn't come for millions. I came for truth. But if this money can speak louder than lies, then I'll take it. Edward stormed in, voice sharp as glass. Give it back. You don't deserve a cent of Whitmore wealth. Rosa stood slowly, her calm, a striking contrast to his rage. Your father thought otherwise. Margaret spat. You'll waste it. Throw it away on causes no one cares about. Rosa's eyes softened, though her tone remained firm. I'll spend it where it matters. Scholarships for black children, who never get chances. A fund for domestic workers so no woman scrubbing floors has to bury her child, because healthcare was called too expensive. The siblings blinked, stunned. Daniel scoffed, swirling his drink. So that's it, you want to play savior. Use our money to buy sainthood. Rosa shook her head. Not sainthood, justice. You don't understand the difference because you've never lived without it. Edward's face twisted, rage mixing with desperation. This was supposed to be ours, everything, and now you walk in. Take what we bled for. Rosa's voice cut through him like a blade. You never bled. Others did. My husband, my son, hundreds of workers. This empire was built on graves, not your effort. The least you can do is watch some of it returned. Margaret's hands trembled. You'll destroy us. Rosa's expression was solemn. No, you're destroying yourselves. Greed eats from the inside. Mr. Cole gathered his papers. Ms. Daniels has already drawn plans for the Rosa Foundation. Contracts are ready. Margaret's face went pale. A foundation, with our name tied to it. Rosa met her gaze. Not your name, mine. The words landed like thunder. For once, the room was silent. Daniel chuckled bitterly, raising his glass. Well then, to Rosa Daniels, the new Whitmore. Rosa turned toward him, her voice quiet. I don't need their name. I already have one, and it carries more honor than all your riches. Edward staggered back, his fury collapsing into fear. You'll regret this. The world will turn on you. Rosa walked to the doorway, pausing only once. I've lived my whole life with the world against me. I am still standing. Can you say the same? She left them there, surrounded by papers, bottles, and their own unraveling reflections. Outside, Rosa breathed the crisp air. Reporters shouted her name, cameras flashing. For the first time, she didn't feel invisible. She didn't feel like the maid. She felt like someone rewriting history with every step. Her whisper carried into the wind. This is for you, Samuel. For you, Thomas. For every hand that built and was forgotten. The Whitmore empire had tried to bury her. Instead, it had given her a weapon stronger than wealth. Legacy. The Whitmore mansion stood in silence, its great pillars washed gray by morning light. For decades it had loomed as a symbol of power. Now, it felt like a mausoleum. Rosa stood at the front doors, suitcase in hand. She looked around one last time, the grand staircase she had polished on her knees, the chandeliers she dusted while invisible, the hallways echoing with orders instead of kindness. Margaret appeared on the landing above, her silk robe hanging like armor. Leaving already? Taking your prize and running? Rosa's gaze rose, steady. No, I'm leaving because I no longer need to stay. Edward emerged from the study, his tie-loosed eyes bloodshot. You'll regret this, Rosa. The press will move on, the courts will eat you alive, and you'll have nothing. Rosa's voice was calm, but it cut deeper than anger. I've lived with nothing before, and it was still more honest than this house full of everything. Daniel stumbled in from the parlor, glass still in hand. His laugh was hollow. Look at Uskos fighting over bones. Father would be proud. No, Rosa said softly. Even he wanted better at the end. The siblings had no reply. They stood scattered across the mansion's grand entrance, fractured pieces of an empire crumbling under its own weight. Mr. Cole entered quietly, holding a final envelope. Ms. Daniels, he said, offering it to her. This is yours. Mr. Whitmore asked that you open it when you chose to leave. Rosa took the envelope. The handwriting was unmistakable, Harold's uneven scrawl. She opened it slowly. Rosa, I cannot undo what I've done. But I can acknowledge it. If you are reading this, it means you stayed long enough to see my children's masks fall away. I ask one last thing. Don't let their hatred become your burden. Live free. Live proud. Let your name, not mine, echo. Harold. Rosa folded the letter, her eyes wet but her voice steady. For once, he understood. Margaret hissed. He was delusional at the end. Rosa met her glare. No, he was finally honest. She turned, opened the heavy doors, and stepped into the sunlight. Reporters gathered at the gates, calling her name, flashing cameras, but Rosa didn't rush. She moved slowly to step a declaration that she no longer carried the weight of their shadows. At the gates, a young black reporter leaned forward, microphone trembling in her hand. Ms. Daniels, what do you plan to do now? Rosa paused, the morning light painting her face in gold. She thought of Samuel, of Thomas, of every unseen worker whose names had been erased by wealth. I plan, she said, her voice carrying, like a bell, to make sure no one is invisible again. The crowd hushed, scribbling her words, recording her face. For the first time, the world was listening. Behind her, the Whitmore mansion loomed, but its power was broken. No longer a fortress, only a relic. Rosa walked away, suitcase rolling softly against the gravel. She didn't look back. Some houses weren't meant to be homes, they were meant to be buried. Her last whisper, carried on the breeze, almost prayer, almost victory. This is my word, the last word. And with that, Rosa Daniels stepped into history not as a maid, but as a voice that could never again be silenced.